Well, hey there, folks. How you doing today? Hope you're having an awesome day. Well, I think we got a pretty cool one to check out today, particularly for those of you like myself that like the older knives. This one is on loan from Rasputin's Castle. He sent me a bunch of his knives from his collection to check out and do some reviews on, so thank you very much for that. But this one is an Electric Cutlery Company knife. Now, we'll look the knife over and then we'll get into a little bit of history. So the information that Mike sent with this one was that it's Electric Cutlery Company, made in New York, knife company plant, 1911 to 1928. So I had to go do some research, but before we get into that, we'll look at the knife. So the knife itself comes in at 3.5 inches closed. It is an equal end jack, has bone covers, very nice looking bone, very nice jigging. You got your police shield, looks like possibly nickel silver bolsters, has an easy open cutout on both sides. Your main blade is a spear point, a nice swedge to the top, long pull nail nick, and it's very hard to make out. I'll throw a picture up, but it is Electric Cutlery Company and Walden, New York. Has half stops, very clean half stops, very flush on the back spring. Nice snap on the open. Everything perfectly tight. This one didn't see much use. A few scratches and whatnot on it, but for the age of this knife, it is in excellent shape. Very nice snap on the close, and then your secondary blade is a little pen blade. Looks like it may have seen more use than the main blade. See a little bit more meat gone on this one. Again, you have the Electric Cutlery Company, Walden, New York stamp on it. Even a little bit of a sharpening choil there. And very snappy, very tight, extremely well made knife. You have a swedge down the interior side. Again, very flush on the half stops. Very nice snap. The knife likely has steel back springs. And if you notice, 1, 2, 3, 4 pins for the cover. And from watching Mike's channel, I've learned that's more of a European design. Just see that 4th pin right there. Feels like it's pushing through a little bit from this side. You can't feel it on this side, but it's still right there. Just a very sharp looking knife. The knife swells to the pommel, and it's going to feel nice in your hand that way. Just that swell is going to enhance your grip. Full 4-finger grip for me. Just a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. Blade alignment is good. No gapping. Got brass liners and a brass divider between your 2 springs. Just an excellent build. I really love the covers on this one. They just stand right out. Your main blade comes in at, Comes in at about 2 5/8, and your cutting surface comes in at about 2 2/8 on your main blade. Secondary blade, you're looking at bang on 2 inches for your blade and just a little over 1.5 on your cutting surface. So electric cutlery company is one I hadn't heard of. So I had to go and do some research. So in the 1860s, two gentlemen, J. Christopher Friedman and Charles R. Lauderjung, immigrated to New York from Germany. In 1864, they established a cutlery import business, Friedman and Lauderjung. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the best I can do for now. And they imported a lot of knives, particularly from Germany, knives, and they were well known for their shaving razors as well. So in 1873, Friedman and Lauderjung introduced the electric brand. So there'd probably be two good reasons for that. Number one, they're selling in the US. So around that time, majority of your cutlery was either coming from Solingen, Germany, or from Sheffield, England. And to sell something locally in the US, it was probably better to brand it with a more familiar name. And around that time in history, electricity was kind of becoming a big thing. So it was pretty smart branding on their part. You've got the more familiar terminology or less overseas sounding name, and then you're jumping on the bandwagon of the new trend in electricity. So before we go any further down the history of the electric knife company, we're going to go off on a tangent, because I find the history of pocket knives and cutlery fascinating, because there's so much interchange and connected stories. It's almost like a soap opera. So one of the sales reps for Friedman and Lauderjung was a gentleman by the name of John Brown Francis Champlin, and he was their sales rep out of the New York office. In 1876, he leaves Friedman and Lauderjung and forms his own knife company, JBF Champlin and Son, and he forms that in Little Valley, New York. He runs this company from about 1882 to 1886. I've seen other references saying 1865 to 1886, but it makes more sense to go with the 1882 reference, because during the 60s and 70s, he would have been working as a sales rep for Friedman and Lauderjung. So the JBF Champlin and Son, basically, they contracted knives from other companies. During this time, he marries a lady by the name of Teresa Case. Now, there's a name we should all find familiar. After 1886, he started the Cattaraugus Cutlery Company and brought in brothers-in-law W.R. Jean and John Case. Subsequently, the two brothers would leave to form their own cutlery company, leading to well-known brands including W.R. Case and Sons and the Case Brothers, and that would have been around probably 1898. So you can see the kind of interconnectedness in the history of knives. With companies, people starting at one company, moving up, forming their own company, companies rebranding, companies making knives for other companies. There's a big interconnected web in the knife history that's really fascinating. So as stated, in 1873, Friedman and Lauderjung introduced the electric brand. Now, that was used for straight razors, pocket knives, and other cutlery. In the late 1880s, Friedman and Lauderjung began the process of transferring ownership of the company over to the Fuller brothers of New Jersey. In 1889, the Electric Cutlery Company of Newark, New Jersey is established. Now, around this time, the U.S. government is bringing in tariffs on foreign imports. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, seeing this, the Fuller brothers decided to begin the manufacture of razors and cutlery in the U.S. So they're going to stop importing because tariffs are going to make that more expensive. So they're going to start producing the knives locally. They built a factory in Newark, New Jersey, and that factory runs from 1889 until 1910. In 1910, the Electric Cutlery Company and the New York Knife Company of Walden, New York merged. So the New York Knife Company had been purchased by the Fuller brothers in 1903 from Thomas Bradley, Jr. Now, just as a side note, he went on later on to become a U.S. congressman. This ended production in the New Jersey plant, and everything was brought over to the New York plant. And production continued at this plant until the early to mid 1920s. I've seen different references, but in general, 1922 to the mid 1920s. So just as an interesting historical side note, prior to the Fuller brothers purchasing the New York Knife Company from Thomas Bradley Jr., there had been a situation some years prior where Thomas Bradley fired several of his employees. And he did that because they refused to stop playing baseball at lunchtime. Apparently some of the wives had complained to him or to the company that their husbands were getting hurt at lunchtime because fights were breaking out during the baseball games. So they wouldn't stop playing baseball, so he fired them all. So the fired employees went on to form the Walden Knife Company. And that was one of many knife companies in the area. And even Schrade knives began in that area. Sadly, Schrade was probably the only company in the area to survive the Great Depression. So Electric Cutlery Company knives marked Walden, New York were apparently produced as a second line by the New York Knife Company. Their main line, I guess, was Hammer brand, which is another name we all know. And just a final curious side note, a few years back, apparently there was a revival of the JBF Champlin & Sons Cutlery Company brand. And they reissued a new knife under the Electric Company brand, and that was produced by the Queen Cutlery Company in Titusville. So hopefully they had good success with that. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed the look at this very cool knife. Just, the thing's over 100 years old, and just to find one in this condition, Mike lucked out pretty good there. Just a beautiful knife, extremely well made. And if you're any kind of a cutlery history buff, just some fascinating history and connections for this knife, spanning different companies, different lines, and even a little political tinge to it. So, hope you enjoyed, and we'll call it there for today. I'm hoping the sun comes out today. It's been 2 weeks of rain here. I want to get outside, get some things done. I definitely want to get out in the woods. If you're having a bad day, I think you should do the same thing. Just a great place for a mental reset. But if you're alone, let people know where you're going. Take a knife with you. Might just come in handy. You all take care.